Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're not just talking about volleyball, we're building the blueprint for a volleyball champion. And it goes way beyond just wins and losses. We're digging into what truly creates success in the sport.
You know, I want to start with this idea from the legendary coach Marv Dunphy. He saw volleyball as so much more than a physical contest. He called it a game of reciprocity. What does that mean? Well, it's about a constant give and take, a true teamwork where your individual skill only matters if it serves the whole team. You just can't freelance in this sport.
So in this explainer, we're going to follow that blueprint. We'll start with the absolute foundation, the player as a person. Then we'll move through coaching and practice, and we're going to end with a whole new definition of what it really means to win.
Okay, so let's get into it. How do we get past just focusing on that perfect highlight reel spike? Well, the sources we're looking at today suggest that real, long-lasting success is built on something totally different. It doesn't start with the athlete, it starts with the person.
And this right here, this is the most important building block of them all. Before you can even think about building a champion player, you have to focus on building a resilient, confident, and whole person.
The volleyball development matrix actually calls this the person pillar. Think of it as the base of a pyramid. It supports everything else, and it's built on making sure basic needs are met, like safety and belonging, but also on developing these deeper qualities like connection, care for yourself and your teammates, and of course, courage.
Let's just zoom in on one of those for a second. Courage. In this context, it's not just about being brave enough to dive for a tough ball. It's the courage to persevere, to stay locked in and optimistic, whether you're up by 10 or fighting your way back from a huge deficit. It's about being fully present every single time you step on that court. And this quote from the legend Flo Hyman it captures that idea perfectly. She knew that breaking through barriers wasn't some heroic, one-time thing. No, it's a habit. It's a muscle you build over and over again, and that's what lets you keep pushing your own limits.
All right, so once that personal foundation is in place, let's talk about the architect of the team, the coach. Their playbook, the way they communicate, that's what can either build up that foundation into something amazing or cause the whole thing to crumble.
You know, a core principle here is all about positive reinforcement. Great coaching is about the process, not just the final score. When you praise the effort to learn a new skill, you're giving players the psychological safety they need to try and fail. And honestly, that's the only way they'll ever really grow into learners for life.
Now this is a really powerful shift in thinking, moving from feedback to feed forward. See, feedback always looks backward at the mistake, but feed forward, it looks to the future. A coach says, okay, that happened. On the next one, let's focus on this. It's totally collaborative, it's inspiring, and it basically tells the player, hey, I'm with you. Let's get this next one together.
So the bottom line is this. Getting angry at a player for a mistake is probably one of the worst things a coach can do. It just creates fear, it kills creativity, and it can absolutely destroy a young player's love for the game. Remember, the goal is development, not perfection.
Okay, so we've covered the person and the coach. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do you design practices that actually make players better when it really counts in a game?
So think about it. Think about all the different drills you've ever run in your life. You've got cones, partner passing, wall bumps, the list goes on. But what if I told you that the best drill for every single primary skill in volleyball was the exact same drill?
And there it is. Coach Marv Dunphy's answer is a total game changer. And why? It's so simple. Because it's game-like. Drills that don't mimic the chaos and the flow of a real match, they just don't transfer. Skills you learn in a vacuum tend to stay in a vacuum. The secret is to practice the way you actually want to play.
So how do you do it? How do you make practice more game-like? Well, the principles are pretty simple, but they're incredibly powerful. First, always play over the net. It trains the most important skill there is, reading the ball. Second, use 3 contacts whenever you can. Third, make it a game. Put a score on it. And finally, use smaller teams on smaller courts to maximize the number of touches everyone gets. It's all about making sure the skills you build in practice actually show up on game day.
And that brings us to the final part of our blueprint. It's time to redefine what the ultimate win really is. It's not just about this season's championship trophy. It's about building a love for the sport that lasts an entire lifetime.
There's this framework called the Long-Term Athlete Development Model, or LTAD, and it really just zooms out to see the big picture. It's all about mastering fundamental movement skills early on
to build a foundation, not just for volleyball, but for being a healthy, active person for life.
And check this out. This table really puts that philosophy into perspective. Look at the learning to train stage for kids around 8 to 12. The recommendation is 70% training to 30% competition. That means for every one game, they should be having at least 2 practices. The message here is crystal clear. We have to give our athletes time to actually develop skills before we're constantly testing them in competition.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The one and only Kharchkiliali reminds us that failure isn't something we should run from, it's a critical part of the journey. Those really tough, bitter losses, that's the fuel for growth. Overcoming that stuff is what makes winning so sweet. It's what defines a real champion. So, the blueprint is right there in front of us. The big takeaway is this: if you want to build a champion athlete, you have to start by building a whole person. So whether you're a coach, a parent, or a player, your season starts right now. What's the first brick you're going to lay?